Today I'd like to share with you some of the process behind this drawing that I created during Inktober. Now, this was about a month ago already, and at the time I was just so busy that I didn't really have time to get around to editing this footage and getting it ready for all of you to view. So here I'm going to share some with you. It is sped up a tiny bit so that we can get through this just a little faster. Uh, I would love to be able to show the entire process to you really slowly. It's just sometimes when I'm editing, I have to make kind of these little artistic decisions about what the best format is. And I do know that some of you are okay with seeing footage that is sped up a little or even in full time lapse. So I'd like to do that today while we talk a little bit about what the inspiration was for this kind of drawing. I have drawn this kind of thing before, and I've tried doing it in slightly different ways. But one thing that I can say is that with a drawing like this, I'm usually always inspired by the forces of nature. I know that when looking at it with the way that it flows, the way that it swirls around and it looks like it's water in many ways. And you'll see as I keep adding more and more of these lines right next to each other, in a very simple way, it might even look like it's just spaghetti or hair or something noodly, kind of just in a container all tangled up. It could even be yarn. But what I'm thinking about when I'm drawing this kind of thing, I'm thinking more about forces that are a little more hard to define. In particular, the thing that was really inspiring me was this account on Instagram, and I will add it in the description so that any of you who are interested in looking at it can go look at it. And it's this account of an astronomer who, and I'll say astronomer because he does study the sun itself. And I don't recall if he's like officially trained or anything, but he created his own telescope, and it is a very special telescope. And what he does with it is he points it up at the sun and he just records it for hours and hours and hours and hours. And the footage that he comes up with is so incredibly gorgeous. And I've just been finding so much inspiration in the footage that he records because it shows in time lapse how these enormous waves of energy move on the surface of the sun. And knowing that it's in time lapse and that these movements that you see, it looks like, I mean, it is fire. It looks like fire, just like all these sort of flames kind of licking and moving, and it's almost like water, but like fire. It's so strange, and just the way everything moves is so beautiful. And not only am I in awe, of course, of what the sun looks like on the surface, but also just the work that this man put into being able to record something that pretty much we all know about, but he wanted to really get some good footage of it, and it's just so beautiful. And every time I'm in awe. And so, looking at the footage of his time lapse footage, I decided to draw something like this where I could really show what that surface of the sun looked like. Now, in the future, I would like to be able to add some color to this to really show what I mean when I'm talking about the surface of the sun. It's just all these gorgeous kind of orange colors, yellows, a little bit of red, and of course lots of white. It is bright, and what I like seeing when he shows the footage is how he'll add this tiny little earth, and he shows the scale of it. And so at first he'll start showing the entirety of the sun and what it looks like through his telescope. And then he'll add this tiny green dot in the corner saying, for scale, this is what Earth looks like. And as he zooms in just this one little tiny segment of the surface of the sun, he continues to show the scale, and it is magnificent. For any of you who aren't aware, it would take about 1.3 million Earth masses to equate pretty much the volume of the sun. I'm not talking about just the mass itself, but the volume. So the physical space that the sun takes up. It would take over 1 million Earths to fill up that space. And so we are so very tiny, and the sun is so very huge. And just seeing the way that it moves, the way that it spits out these kind of tendrils of energy, which basically end up becoming solar radiation, solar winds, basically. And some of us have heard of electromagnetic waves or electromagnetic pulses. The sun puts those out. And sometimes just seeing the scale of it, seeing how on the surface of the sun, this one strip of energy kind of starts pulling away from the rest. And you'll see it as it's kind of starting to lick at the darkness of space, and it starts to pull away, and then suddenly it just kind of pops off, and then just fades away out into the distance. And especially in this footage that this man shares, showing the scale of the Earth next to one of those tendrils of energy. And it looks like the Earth could fit inside of there, inside of the loop, before it kind of releases from the surface of the sun, or maybe even multiple Earths could fit inside of there. It is just magnificent. I could say that it is scary, but it's simply the way that things are. And when I'm watching that, even though in total he only shares, about a minute of footage, time-lapse footage of this, it is so impressive just seeing how grand things are around us. And I like to use that as inspiration when I create my drawings. And so that's what I was doing here. I was trying to draw those kind of eddies, the flowing and the moving of all this energy. And that's only the surface of the sun, because inside of the sun there's just so much more going on, so much more magnificence happening inside of there, that who knows if we could ever even find a good way to represent it visually. But there's just so much going on inside of there. But I feel like just being able to look at the surface, because of course we can't do it with our eyes, since that would completely ruin our retinas. So we want to have some technology to assist us in taking a look at that. And oh my goodness, it is glorious. So again, I'm going to do my best to link the Instagram page that shares that. I do like to check out what he posts. He posts pretty regularly, and it really inspires my artwork. And even during the times when I'm not necessarily drawing this kind of thing, I do think about that a lot. In my meditations, I like to think about, I suppose, about the magnitude of things. And I really do mean the magnitude, because mathematically, when we talk about magnitudes, we're not just talking about, the difference in size between $1 and $2. It's really more talking about exponentially how much bigger things get. And when it comes to the cosmos, when it comes to the universe, magnitude really is important. Things will grow in the scale of, to the power of thousands, to the power of millions. Things get huge fast. I know that I have seen some shows that talk about the difference in sizes, even just among stars, that our sun, as grand and magnificent as it is actually kind of a little guy in the grand scheme of things. That there are stars in our Milky Way that are hundreds of times bigger. And there are stars that are hundreds and thousands of sizes bigger than even those. And they get bigger and bigger and bigger until they are so grand that we cannot even fathom what they could possibly be like. And those kind of thoughts, those kind of ideas about just how enormous things are in the universe help kind of give me the sense of calm. And this comes up a lot when I'm meditating, and I guess I'm just sharing it right now, not to tell you that this is something that you should do. Maybe this doesn't work for you, but I'm sharing it because I know that sometimes when we stress out, when there's a little bit too much going on, it feels like stressing out is the way to go. It feels like we should stress out and try to figure everything out. And yet, if you take a moment to think about how much there is out there, to think about how much life there is and how much universe there is, to think about just how huge everything is, that can help give you some perspective about things. For me in particular, it really helps me feel so tiny, thinking about how everything is so enormous. And because of the way that I am and how I just have these horrible tendencies to basically worry about everything all the time, forever, being reminded that I'm so tiny really does help me kind of slow down. It helps me remember that I'm just a little speck of sand in a huge ocean. And it helps me stop taking everything so seriously. I know some of you have seen some of my previous videos, and one of the pieces of advice that has helped me so much recently is to stop taking everything so seriously. And this is one of the things that I do to try to remind myself of that. I'm just tiny. I'm just one person in one tiny planet in a tiny solar system, in the Milky Way, in an enormous universe. It's only when I start thinking of myself as important or significant in some way that I start stressing out about the result or the outcome of the things that I do. And granted, it is important to keep in mind what I'm doing. It is important to think about the outcome of my actions. I'm not saying that I shouldn't think about it, but certainly taking things too seriously for too long can really lead to some unfortunate outcomes. And so this drawing that you're seeing me create, this image of flowing lines, of swirling forces, this to me is a little reminder that I am not the center of everything. Not everything revolves around me. I am just a small part in a bigger picture. I am a moving piece. And I don't say this in any way to make myself truly insignificant. There is meaning to my life. There is meaning to all of our lives. There's always something valuable to be given through our existence. But when we think of ourselves as far too important or far more significant than we really are, it can really lead to a lot of stress. So in my case, I try to remember that it's okay to do new things. It's okay to experiment. It's okay to let things go. And it's okay to not take things seriously. So for me, this drawing was just a really good meditation on just the enormity of the universe. If any of you have a chance to check out his Instagram profile, I hope that you look at it and really take some time to really think about the natural way of things, to really think about what it is that surrounds you in this world, in this universe. Now again, I would like to add that when I talk about feeling smaller or feeling insignificant, I do want to stress that in no way this meditation is intended to truly make you feel like you are meaningless in any way. That's not it at all. Mostly, this kind of meditation is just important for those of us who start getting overwhelmed by things. For me in particular, the reason that it helps me is because I start feeling like the weight of everything is on my shoulders. And so in order to avoid that kind of feeling, I have to stop and remember that not everything can be carried on my shoulders. There's no way. It's impossible. And by remembering just how infinite everything is, that's how I remember that. So if you are in any way like me, and especially right now that Thanksgiving Day is coming up and there are just so many things to stress out about, I hope that you are able to take a moment and remember that everything's going to be okay. That as long as you are doing your best, as long as you fill your heart with love, everything will be fine. Try to remember that there is an enormous, beautiful, awesome, amazing cosmos out there full of so much. And whether you believe there is someone or maybe if there is something responsible for all of that, whatever it is you believe, hold on to that. Because it will help remind you that you are a small part of a larger picture. And so, speaking of pictures, this is my picture. This is my little picture. My little part of a larger, grander existence. So whatever it is you're doing, if you are drawing, if you are meditating, if you are just taking a moment before you get back to it, whatever it is you're doing, whether it is something or nothing or little or much, it matters to you, and that's why it matters. And so take a breath, take a moment, and relax and just be yourself for a little bit. I hope that this gave you a chance to just kind of relax for a bit. And I really do hope that as the days pass and as we approach Thanksgiving, that you remember that everything is fine. You don't have to take everything so seriously. You don't have to be like me. And if you do get a chance to create a drawing like this one, please let me know. I'd love to see it. I'd love to check out your work. There's an email listed down below where you can check that out. I have some free coloring pages. If you need some time coloring, you can download those from my Gumroad page. Take some time for yourself because there is only so much time left. Our tiny lives only last so long. You might as well have lots of fun with it. So again, I hope that you enjoyed this. This was a nice chat, and I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next one.